Hello, welcome back to Wrestling Doesn't Make Sense. Without a doubt, the greatest podcast on the internet. I think not just about professional wrestling. I think just ever, right?
Yeah, that's what I hear.
Like I can't just off the top of my head, I can't think of a better one. So I guess that's all the evidence we need to officially declare ourselves the greatest podcast of all time. And I don't think that's hyperbole, is it?
No,
Is that
I mean we've been doing this for such a long time now. We've earned the right to call ourselves the greatest podcast of all time.
I think so. Yeah. So speaking of the greatest podcast of all time, on Sunday, Backlash was on, and it featured as its main event the greatest wrestling match of all time. Now, how appropriate would it be for the greatest podcast of all time to talk about the greatest wrestling match of all time?
I mean, it's almost written in the stars.
Right. It's almost as if that was like an amazing intro that we had written. And, that just proves it. We are so good. That's just more proof that we're just the best, the most amazing, the greatest podcast of all time.
Yep.
So, hey, everybody. How you doing? Let's talk about Backlash. Let's do that.
Yeah.
All right. I didn't watch the pre-show. Did you watch the pre-show?
No, I didn't watch it either.
Poor Apollo Crews has been in so many matches that are on the pre-show and thus we haven't seen. I usually try to watch the pre-show. I didn't watch it this time. I think it was Apollo Crews versus Andrade.
Yes, that's right.
But neither of us watched that match, so we can't possibly comment on it.
No.
So let's move on to the show.
Yay.
Yay. So the opening match was the women's tag team championships.
Mm-hmm.
The Iconics, the wonderful, wonderful Iconics versus Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross.
Yep.
Team name to be decided, or do they have a name?
I think they might have a name, but I have no idea what it is.
Yeah, two wrestlers. It's probably a little bit snappier than that, I would imagine, than just two wrestlers. But and then the champions were Bayley and Sasha Banks. So yeah, what are they called? Do they have a team name?
They were the legit bosses, weren't they, or something like that?
That's a good one. I like that.
I think they may be going by a different moniker now, though, but I can't remember what it is.
They can't have two wrestlers because that's already taken.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys. I really like heel Bayley now.
Yeah?
I don't know what it is. I think when she started being a heel, maybe that was just like, teething problems. She wasn't used to it because she'd been a face for so long.
Oh, yeah.
She's very, very good at playing just that lovable underdog, So for Bayley to be heel, like she had to kind of go all in and really make people hate her. And so for the first couple of months, I was a little bit like, okay, well, we'll see how this goes. But I don't know, man. And I don't know when the light switch kind of flipped, but she's good, man. She's a good heel.
Yeah.
I think she's really enjoyed it too. She really seems to be digging the opportunity to just yell at people a lot. It's good. You want to relish in that, So what did you think about this opening bout?
Yeah, I thought it was like a pretty solid match. It was, quite fast paced for like how short amount of time they had to work with. It was like under 10 minutes, but they were like going at it pretty much full blast. So that was cool to see. It seemed like it was doing a bit of business like for everyone as well. So like the Iconics have been kind of playing up there. There's been some problems there recently, and there's like certainly one moment where I think it was Peyton Royce who got knocked into Billie Kay or the other way around, and knocked her off the apron and stuff, and that kind of thing seems to be setting up for a storyline down the road, which is cool to see. And obviously Bayley and Sasha Banks have their own individual story as well, which they're very, very slowly building towards.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's only been like 3 years now since it technically started.
Right.
But yeah, it was a good fun match. I thought it wasn't like the best match ever, because the greatest match ever is coming up later in the show. But
It's true.
yeah, it did the job.
Yeah, I thought it was okay. I would be very disappointed if they did split the Iconics. I don't think that's a good idea.
Mm.
But, I've said that about stuff before, and, you know, sometimes I have been proven correct. But also other times I've been wrong, so you never know. But at the same time, like, I don't see the benefit of splitting up a legitimate tag team in the
Yeah, yeah.
middle of having a already not great women's tag division.
Mm-hmm.
Also, given that they already split Mandy Rose and Sonya Deville a couple of months ago,
Yeah, yeah.
don't go splitting up more of the teams. It's not gonna do good. Look for your tag division. You need more tag teams. Even in NXT, I was like, who'd be great to fight for the women? Like if they brought them up onto the main roster for a shot or something,
Mm.
be Dakota Kai and Tegan Nox. That'd be a great fucking babyface tag team. And then shenanigans happen. And I really like Dakota Kai as a heel. So
Yeah.
that's been good. Like she's done a really good job, like, kind of reinventing herself. But at the same time, like you could have made money off those two as an actual tag team.
Well, I think Dakota Kai and I can't remember what a bodyguard's name is, but like them could be potential challengers for the titles down the line. Like
Yeah.
on NXT this week, there's going to be a women's tag team title match with Tegan Nox and Shotzi Blackheart challenging for the titles as well. So it's good to see that NXT is getting into the women's tag team division a bit, because arguably NXT has got like the best women's division on all three rosters. So yeah, why not make use of it, I guess.
Right. I like this idea about, like they've done it a couple of times before where they sometimes defend, like I think Asuka and Kairi Sane defended their belts on NXT before.
Mm.
I like it. It really does kind of promote all the brands. I dig that. But yes, I would like to see a little bit more of it. I think that if the good women, not the good women, but like if there's a good tag team division in NXT, you may as well use some of those characters that you have to benefit the actual women's tag team division.
Yeah.
So I don't want them to split up the Iconics. I think it'll be a bad idea because there's way more stuff they can do with them.
Mm.
Oh, don't like throw in the towel just yet. Like those two are good as a team. You've got mileage there. You can work that. We shouldn't be the ones having to say this. What the fuck? But anyway, that match was alright. I thought it was okay. And then the next match I think was Sheamus versus Jeff Hardy. Is that right?
Yeah.
All right. What did you think of this one?
I quite enjoyed it, to be honest. Like, I know the storyline going into it is a bit cheesy and like maybe arguably in bad taste as well, with like making.
How is it cheesy to throw piss over a guy?
Well, I mean,
the old piss routine.
well, they've done it before though, with Shawn Michaels and I think it was Vince McMahon way back in the day. Like, well, not way back in the day, probably about 10 years ago or something. So
a classic bit.
Yeah.
That we all remember to this day.
But I mean, it was really badly done as well, because like if you looked at the supposed piss, it's like so full up after he'd supposedly urinated in it that it was clearly not piss.
You don't think you could fill like an entire like medical beaker full of piss?
I mean, you'd have to be drinking a hell of a lot beforehand.
Case in point, Jeff Hardy, the alcoholic. I think they made their point very clear with that.
Mm.
I quite like that build up. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah.
Because it is quite real. Well, at the same time, I think it's a very wrestling thing to do, where it seems like a real thing, but it's not real.
Well,
you know what I mean?
The thing that worries me about it though is like we've seen this before with Jake Roberts and Road Warrior Hawk as well, like how they've treated their alcoholism as something to be made fun of, and or not even made fun of, but just like used as a story when it's like pretty real and something that the actual person is really going through as well. So it kind of, I don't know, in that regard, it comes across as bad taste to me, just because it can't be particularly fun for the person involved in the angle having to sort of, you know, deal with his problem so publicly like that, have
What
it like used as a storyline.
kind of? But here's my opinion on it, right? If you got arrested for like a DUI, right?
Mm.
That'd be kind of embarrassing. You're like, wow, that sucks. Like all over the place, you know. I don't like it. But say you lost your job from that, right? You'd be like, well, you know, that's the consequences of my actions coming back to teach me a lesson.
Mm.
I made a very public mistake, and you know, things have caught up with me. All right. Now imagine you're Jeff Hardy and you're making money off that. You're not at all encouraged to not do it. He still has a job. He's still getting paid loads of money. It's been
Yeah.
worked into the show. Like, you know, I don't see why he would be bummed out about it. Given the fact that this isn't his first DUI. If they'd have made fun of it the first time, you know, shame on them. But this is like the third time, so they're like, well, this is just what you do then. this is part of the Jeff Hardy character.
Yeah, but the fact
You know
it's
what I mean?
happened like
Like,
3 times or whatever just shows that it is like a serious problem, which maybe he should be getting proper help for to kind
and
of
there
overcome.
and therefore that's a kind of very serious and realistic problem that they're bringing light to in their storyline. You know what I mean? Like people always fucking bitch and moan at the WWE for not being more realistic with their shit. And then they come up with an actual like a bunch of realistic storylines that you know people do go through. I mean, maybe not the throwing piss on your colleagues. I mean, I've only done that a handful of times. You know, I don't even know. Probably couldn't count it on both hands. But like you know that and like the whole Lana thing with you know Rusev and Lashley, the people didn't really like. But I'm like, yeah, but that's the story that happens to people. You know, sometimes you're in a relationship, but if you're working with your a significant other and somebody else, sometimes love triangles happen,
Hmm.
right? That's a realistic storyline.
Yeah.
What do people mean when they say they want realistic storylines? Do they mean whatever garbage AEW is doing? Is that more realistic? Do they mean getting in a fight with Mike Tyson? Is that more realistic than having a drink problem? You know what I mean? Do you know where I'm coming from?
I guess so, but I'm gonna have to agree to disagree on that point.
That's fine. That's I mean I'm sure you're not the only person to disagree with my stupid statements on this stupid show. Um, but yeah, like I was okay with the build to this match, and I thought the match was pretty good.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, I'm no fan of Jeff Hardy,
Mm.
but I gotta say, like when you watch the build up to that match, he did a really good promo.
Yeah, yeah.
Really good promo. That's the most like lifelike I've ever heard Jeff Hardy. He really was into it. Sheamus can cut a great promo. They really have like it's like a personal thing, which is what people want from their wrestling, to have an
Mm.
actual beef between two people, and you really get that. And I thought that they wrestled like a match that was that built up to that made you think these were two people who just really wanted to fight each other.
Yeah, but I mean, it started off with a headlock, which really annoyed me.
Yeah, that's
Like,
not a good. Yeah.
it's like, oh, we really hate each other so much, and then, oh, I'm gonna put you in a headlock. It's like, no,
Yeah,
just like punch him in the face. That's what you should be starting the match with.
it's like when you see like a grudge match being advertised and they start with like a lockup.
Yeah.
You're like, what kind of? You're not that pissed at each other if you're going in for a hug, you know. But I thought the match was pretty good. Like, you know, it's not the greatest wrestling match of all time,
No, no.
but like, you know, it's a good start to the show so far.
Definitely.
Thought. I'm like, okay, I dig this. I mean, I like Sheamus. Jeff Hardy put on a good match. I could admit. You know, I'm like, okay, I'm digging it so far. And then comes Asuka,
Yeah.
my beloved Asuka, and my less beloved Nia Jax.
Nia Jax.
Can I just say I was watching or listening to somebody ask Jim Cornette about Nia Jax injuring people, and just to prove that there is even more of a relationship between me and Jim Cornette, he was also pronouncing it Nia Jax, or whatever the incorrect one is, despite having been told by his co-host what the actual name was. So there you go, me and Jim Cornette joined at the hip, not literally. That would hurt. So apologies for now if I do mispronounce Miss Jax's name during this entire show. Can I just call her Jax?
Yeah,
I'm just gonna call her
I
Jax.
guess
Yeah. Or I just make up a name for her.
so.
You know, a little Billy. She probably wouldn't like that though. She'd probably like, beat the shit out of me if I call her Billy.
I imagine so.
Yeah. So Jax and Asuka had a match. What did you think of this one?
Well, they've definitely had better matches together. And this, I guess, it was. It almost felt like they didn't really get out of second gear because with the finish it had for the double count out, and like they didn't really need to, so it was just fine, I guess. There wasn't much to it, and I'll be honest, I wasn't a huge fan of the ending as well, like with the double count out, because it's like, well, what's the point?
Waste of time.
Yeah, I mean, apparently it wasn't the original finish as well. Like I read that Asuka was supposed to go over clean, but they didn't want Nia Jax losing yet because she's still relatively fresh back to the roster, and they want to keep her looking strong. But then saying that, they had a rematch on Raw the next night where Asuka did pin her, albeit like with I think it was like a bit of controversy in the sense that the referee sort of distracted Nia Jax because she was complaining over Asuka getting her foot on the ropes, and then I think he gave a bit of a fast count as well. So when Asuka rolled her up, but I don't know if that was like done to protect Nia Jax, that would have been fine for this first match. Like why not just do that here rather than book this lame double count out and then do a rematch on Raw?
Well, it looked like that when you watch it. Well, when I watched it, I thought that the Asuka didn't look happy whenever the bell rang, because you could see her like sliding into the ring. But also because I watched that again just to see if I could pick up on it, and I'm like, it's definitely Jax that does the miss time, because she's supposed to lift up Asuka and like throw her into something, but then Asuka counters it and then slides into the ring. And you can hear by the time the referee gets to it, like Nia Jax hasn't done the thing she's supposed to do yet. So you're like, there's no chance they're gonna get into the ring in time,
Yeah.
So I get the finish. Like even if that wasn't the planned finish, that still works. Asuka doesn't lose, but neither does Nia Jax. It's not a great finish, but it still protects both of them. It leads to a match down the line. That I didn't mind, but I do agree with you about the whole thing seeming like it didn't get out of second gear. Something about that match didn't click, and I don't know what it was, but it just didn't seem like. And they've definitely had better matches before.
Yeah, oh yeah,
Well,
definitely.
I was thinking, like, has Nia Jax got worse? You know what I mean? Like, suddenly she's just beating the shit out of people. Like, when did this happen? Like, what the fuck? Also, why do they keep putting her in the ring with Kairi Sane?
Yeah.
How many times can she just, fucking literally break apart poor Kairi Sane? Why? Why would they look at that and go, wow, Kairi Sane almost died. Do it again on Raw. Like, give her a break, god dang it. She's not from your country. Doesn't speak English. Give her a break, Yeah, dude, that match, I love Asuka to death, but no, dude, something about that match didn't jazz with me, and I don't know what it was. But that's fine. We've already had some pretty good matches, and we've still got the greatest match of all time to come.
Exactly.
So that one dud match isn't going to be a bad thing.
Yeah.
So I'm sure that whatever the next match is, it definitely won't be a dud or involve a dud wrestler in any way.
Yeah.
Now, if memory serves me correctly, the next match was Braun Strowman versus The Miz and John Morrison.
That is correct.
Oh dear. Oh no. Um, the one note I have, well, I have several notes. The one big note I have about this is why do they have a song? Why do they have to listen to the whole song?
Mm-hmm.
Listen to the whole song. I'm like, this is not a good song. It's not, dude. It's not a good song.
Yeah.
That's not a good song. I was watching these old WCW Nitros from a long time ago, 98, I think, which to us doesn't seem like a long time ago, and then you're like, it's like, what, 22 years ago?
Yeah.
That's a long time. And Conan had released his new rap single, and so all the way through this episode of Nitro, it was just like, here's more of Conan's rap video, and we're just hearing this rap video like over and over and over again, right? And if he showed it once, like in its entirety, that's fine. They just kept going back to this fucking song. I'm like, I don't stop it. I don't want to hear it. So the next week on Nitro, what do you call it? What's his name? Disco Inferno. Forgot his name. Disco Inferno comes out and he's like, I'm gonna do my rap video, and it's him like ripping the dick out of Conan. And I'm like, that's nice. Somebody's making fun of the thing I was making fun of last week. That's funny.
Mm.
And then he did his parody video all the way through the fucking show. And I'm like, are you serious? What the fuck? Why have I watched 2 music videos ad nauseum in a wrestling show? What the fuck? So that's what I felt like watching this. I'm like, why are they bringing back Conan's gimmick of fucking being a rapper? No, like, what the fuck, man? Why can't The Miz steal Conan's other more notable gimmick of not being employed by the WWE? That's a good one. I like that one. Yeah, so this match happened. It was what it was. Braun Strowman, I mean, he's fine.
Mm-hmm.
I really have no problem with Braun Strowman. He for a big guy, he does his job well, right? For the most part.
Yeah, yeah.
John Morrison is like a fucking ice skater. Just, playing around the ring. He looks good. Like the way he moves, he just kind of glides, and he's very smooth, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't need to slag off The Miz already, because we already know he's a shitty wrestler. So I'll leave that there. There was a bit in this match where like Morrison was kicking, he was doing like the kind of like the knee strikes to Braun Strowman, so he hits him from like all angles. And then of course, like as soon as like the camera is like directly behind Braun Strowman and Morrison goes to kick him, you can clearly see that like Strowman, he kind of falls down before he gets hit, and he's like, Morrison's a mile away from that kick.
Yeah.
And I'm like, don't catch that bit on camera, do a retake for that. But other than that, like the match kind of was what it was,
Yeah. To be honest, I didn't think it was that bad. I thought for what it was, which is just like a throwaway handicap match to kind of give Braun Strowman something to do for the month, like, it was all right. It wasn't amazing or anything, but it just did what it was supposed to do, I guess. And
right.
I think it teased as well that maybe Morrison and Miz could be potentially coming to the end of their run together, so there's that to look forward to at least.
Right, but you know what that means is that John Morrison's gonna have to feud with the Miz for 2 months.
Yeah.
Then the Miz is gonna win, and then fucking John Morrison's gonna go home again. Fucking, right? It's gonna happen again. They're gonna do it twice.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be so fucking pissed off at them again. Like, oh yeah, how could they do it to me twice? Such injustice will not stand. But like, that was a heavyweight championship match.
Yeah, Universal Championship.
That was the fucking match to decide who the champion of the universe was.
Mm-hmm.
did it seem like it?
Not at all. No.
No. All the other matches, well, not all the other matches, but most of the other matches so far and to come had way better build.
Yeah.
That didn't seem like a heavyweight championship match at all. You know, like you said, it was for what it was fine. But like that shouldn't have been what it was. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If that was just a regular handicap between those two guys or those three guys, I could have totally bought that. But I'm like, he's your heavyweight champion.
But you know what it is? I think it's partly to do with the fact that there doesn't seem to be a lot of star power around at the moment. Like with Roman Reigns obviously still out, no Brock Lesnar. You got no Undertaker obviously. You got no
Goldberg.
No Goldberg. No Bray Wyatt. He's kind of disappeared over.
Yeah, where'd he go?
Month. Yeah.
Fuck, man.
I think in real life he had his second kid, so that probably explains that away. But yeah, it's just there was no one else really for Braun Strowman to go against, so it's just a case of this being, you know, what they needed to do just to put him on the show.
I guess, but wouldn't it have been better if it was just John Morrison versus Braun Strowman?
Yeah.
And then they just could have had a match, like a fun wrestling match. But you know, what do I know? Well, you know, that's all right. That match was what it was. But I'm sure we still got the greatest wrestling match to come. So you know, we're not too bummed out about that.
Yeah.
What was it the Drew McIntyre match next?
Yes, that's right.
All right, that had some nice build to it.
Indeed.
McIntyre, I fucking love this guy. Like, he's really... I mean, obviously, we've talked about Drew McIntyre before on the show a ton of times, but, like, he's really taken to it. He's done a really good job of being in that position and running with it and making it look good and legitimate. And he looks great as a champion.
Oh, absolutely.
It looks like $1 million. And then we've got Lashley, who also looks like a champion. And that like hype package before that match, really good. Because it really made these two guys look like this was going to be a fucking wrestling match. You know, Lashley he's a good hand. You know, the guy can work. So, and like he's not great on the mic, but when you've got MVP talking for him, a recipe for success.
Absolutely.
You know? So like, I was kind of hyped about this match. I was like, this actually, if it all goes to plan, this could be a really good match. What did you think?
I thought it totally delivered. Like, they went out there and just kind of similar to McIntyre's match with Seth Rollins, like last month or whenever it was. It's just like going out to put on the best match that they can possibly put on, and it was exciting. It was hard hitting. There was good psychology with, like, you know, Lashley jumping in before the bell had even rung to put on the full Nelson, and then kind of teasing that throughout the match as well, going back to it and stuff. Yeah, they were just clicking on all cylinders. Is that the right? I don't know, but whatever. But yeah, they were doing everything they were supposed to do, and it was exciting. And then for some reason Lana comes out, and it's like, well, huh? Like, what the hell? You know, what the hell are they thinking with this shitty finish? Because it was just, it made zero sense.
What the hell is my wife doing here?
But the fact was, it came about where, like, Lashley had just hit the spear, like, countered the Claymore, or, you know, beat Drew to the punch, and then gets a 2 count, and then out comes Lana for no reason whatsoever. Then she gets up on the apron for no reason whatsoever, and, like, this is when Lashley is, like, you know, that far away from winning the match, and he just needs to, like, keep on top of McIntyre. And then, yeah, while he's being distracted, it gives Drew the chance to get up, recover, and give him, like, the Glasgow kiss to knock Lashley into Lana and knock her off the apron. And it's just like, well, what was she doing? I mean, I get she's not really being portrayed as the most intelligent of characters over the years, but Jesus, it just it's a bit baffling.
She just wanted to give her husband a hug. She thought he'd won the match. She came down, was like, "Oh, nice work, honey." But then Lashley was like, "Dude, not now. I'm still working. I'm still at work. Don't embarrass me in front of my coworkers." Then Lana was like, "What?" And then Drew McIntyre hit Lashley into her. Big, oh my goodness, can you imagine how silly he must look? And then, etc. So that's all that was. Good explanation for you. I agree for the most part. I thought that was a really, really good match. Like really, really good. That's exactly the match I wanted them to have. I thought they did deliver. I thought that was great. And like you said, that's coming off Drew McIntyre fighting Seth Rollins. That was a great match too.
Yeah.
The guy's on fire right now. He's doing really good work against like really good people. So I was jazzed about that. The ending, I'm like, well, again, it's like wrestling's complicated. If all matches had the same ending, then they'd be the same, So you kind of have to like pick and choose. At least it kind of made sense because they had said, Lana, don't come out to ringside before this. They made a big deal about Lana not coming out to ringside. So she wanted to come out, I guess, just to give moral support to her husband, which isn't that weird. And then in doing so, in defying what she was ordered to do, she ended up proving them right, which, is more movement in her kind of character as to whether or not she wants to be associated with these kind of people. I think it wasn't terrible ending. You know what I mean?
It just felt lazy more than anything.
You still sound unconvinced.
No, I won't be budged. I don't think. Like,
okay.
Yeah, it just, like I say, really, really lazy. Like, they knew they wanted to have Lana come out and be involved in the finish, but they couldn't be asked to think up like a proper reason for her getting on the apron. So they're just just get up there.
Yeah, okay, I'll give you that. It was a bit, Well, maybe she was whispering something to the referee. Maybe she'd be like, "Hey, referee, your wife just gave birth." He's like, "What?"
I didn't even know she was pregnant.
I have a wife? I gotta get out of here. Wrap this match up, boys,
Yeah.
So, all sorts of possibilities that that we don't know. All right, I'm not gonna try to explain that any further. Let me give you my keys. But anyway, really good match.
Yeah, and like you were saying as well, like the story coming into it was really good as well. Like we kind of knew beforehand that McIntyre and Lashley can work well together because they had that feud in TNA a few years ago where they kind of really hit it off and had good matches and stuff. So I think that was part of the reason why they ended up like pitching the whole this angle to like WWE and stuff. And obviously they had like Paul Heyman like heavily involved behind the scenes as well before his sacking last week.
His untimely departure.
Yeah.
Does that makes it sound more like he's dead though?
Yeah.
He's not. Paul Heyman is not dead. As of this recording, Paul Heyman is not dead.
That's a weird one though. I mean, not entirely unexpected, but it was just I guess.
Yeah, it was a surprise, right? It kind of came out of left field. Like the timing of it.
But I mean, you look at the Raw ratings over the last year or so, and especially in the last, few months since the coronavirus hit, and audiences have just completely dropped off. You can kind of understand that Vince is panicking and wants to make changes and stuff, but I think Paul Heyman was the one who said it himself. Like he envisioned his plans being something that was going to be a long-term project. Like it was going to take a while to sort of introduce all these new wrestlers to the WWE audience and build them up and make people care about them. So to kind of cut his legs off and fire him when he's kind of in the middle of doing that seems like a bit of a weird decision.
Right. And also, I think it's a bad idea to have one guy responsible for both shows.
Yeah.
Not that's not like a knock on the character of Bruce Pritchard or anything like that, but like that's a lot of work for one person. And if putting together like one, show 2 hours plus, for example, a week isn't hard enough. Imagine having to do it for an extra 3 hours. Like, for one person to have to do all of that, it seems like bad news. I mean, obviously, I mean that he's not the sole person writing both shows or whatever. But like, he's in charge of all that stuff, and he has to like get all that stuff approved and get it all through Vince, and does a lot of pitching and dealing and maneuvering and stuff like that. And that's a lot of work for like one guy.
Yeah.
You would hope that it doesn't like spread him too thin, because that's what I feel like is gonna happen. If you have one guy on one show and one guy on another show, at least nobody's getting bogged down with shit. But if you have one guy running the whole show, it seems like a good idea at first, but then after a while, he's gonna like if he gets sick, what's next?
Yeah.
Like, or if he can't take it anymore, if it's too much, which it probably is, what's gonna happen after that? Like, do they hire him back, or do they, what do they do?
Or what if the ratings don't improve and then Vince like blames Bruce Pritchard and fires him as well? Like, who are they going to bring in then?
Eric Bischoff, I imagine.
Because that worked out so well last year.
Well, this time it's for real. He means business, The
He's
first
back
time,
and better than ever.
yeah. Well, that's very appropriate. That's a good one. See this? We got jokes and everything on this show. We really are the greatest podcast of all time. Yeah, but I don't know. I don't think it's a good idea for them to. I don't think it's a good move, personally, and not just because, like, Heyman had a vision or anything like that. Like, I understand that, but like, he's just a guy. He's just Paul Heyman. He's just a man. But like, removing anybody from that spot to give all of that work to one person, I think, is a bad idea. And it's not necessary, especially not now. Let's not blow our load with everything immediately. It's better to kind of space it out a little bit, like Paul Heyman was doing. But there you go. Hey, maybe one of us could be the head writer of SmackDown.
Oh, there we go. I mean, you're kind of getting in a bit of experience with you and Corey on your podcast.
That's available on Unless It Doesn't Make Sense, youtube.com/whatever. Subscribe. It's a really good advert. You can see I practiced that one.
Yeah.
It was really on the ball there. Yeah, I'll write the storylines. Number 1, The Miz mysteriously dies.
He goes back to his home planet.
Yeah, and it's going to be like, who did it? And everybody's like, we all did it in some minute ways. And then they all kind of get over it and continue on with their lives. That's storyline 1. Are you enthused?
Yeah, sign me up.
All right, let's go to the next match. What was the next one? The main event? Oh, wow. Wait. I almost blissfully forgot something. Did you ever have that where you're like, didn't this thing happen? And then like the actual thought, the memory of it like hits you right in the back of the head, and you're like, oh no, that just happened to me, because I just remembered something that's. I was having such a fun time on this podcast. We were having some banter and laughs, and then I had to recall It
was supposed to be a tag team title match.
Was it?
But it didn't even come close to the ring.
Was it anything?
It was just a series of really unfunny skits. Yeah.
So what we're talking about is the Viking Raiders were supposed to fight the Street Profits, who, together are two pretty good tag teams.
Yeah, absolutely.
Who can wrestle. They can. They were doing like goofy skits to promote this match, but like that's not that outlandish. The Street Profits are kind of goofy themselves, and it's a fun juxtaposition, although a little obvious, but a fun juxtaposition to see these big Viking warriors like going bowling and playing golf. Like, we get it. It's a funny joke. but at least they're gonna fight in a match. You know, that's what all this bullshit's leading to, right?
Mhm.
So I'm watching Backlash, and the two teams are backstage, and they're like about to go to the ring, but then they just start fighting backstage. And I was like, okay, I guess they're just gonna fight backstage because you've seen that before. Sometimes like it'll be an ambush backstage, and they'll scuffle for a bit, then they'll fight back to the ring, and then the match starts. You know, that old angle.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that didn't happen at all, and this went on for like half an hour. This went on for fucking ever. You can hear me getting angrier, but I'm like, dude, if I'm willing to fucking, eviscerate the fucking Stadium Stampede match, I'm gonna piss all over this shit because what the fuck, man? They were fighting backstage, and then they had like golf clubs and like Viking weapons, and then some of them ran away, and then one of them had a bowling ball, and he bowled it into the other guy's nuts. In like the strangest, I gotta say, right? You see when he did the thought bubble thing?
Yeah,
He
yeah.
was like holding one of the Viking raiders. You can tell me which one, and I'll like put his name in later.
I think it's Ivar.
Okay.
Ivar.
Holds up the bowling ball while he looks at one of the street profits, and he has like a little thought bubble. I don't know why. That really made me laugh. Maybe it was like the stupid look on his face, but that made me laugh. And then after that, everything took a dark turn because it continued to happen. And like he bowls the bowling ball down the thing, and it hits the guy in the nuts. But like because it was so like cut together, it looked awful. You know what I mean? Like there was a little like camera behind the bowling ball as it rolled down the thing, And
Yeah.
this sucks. Do you remember? I don't know if you do remember this, right? But in the Royal Rumble 2001, somebody gets in the ring. I think it was Steve Blackman at first, and he just brings weapons with him, right? Because nobody's done that before. Why has nobody done that before?
Yeah, yeah.
Right? So they just start beating the fuck out of people with weapons. Because I'm like, well, that's legal. That's totally makes sense. So then like Raven and fucking all these, the Hollies and stuff come in. And they're just like beating the shit out of people with all these weapons. And then Al Snow comes in and he's a bowling ball, and he just bowls like a ball directly into Raven's dick. Raven's sitting in the corner, and Al Snow just straight away bowls him right in the dick. Right? No cuts, no camera angles, no fucking thought bubbles. Just happens, and I'm like, that's the best thing that ever happened. Amazing, right? Because it was just there. It just happened,
Yeah.
It was a beautiful moment, and that's the kind of thing that you do get in hardcore matches, like these little like moments of inspiration, which are nice, where you kind of just move on an instinct and stuff happens, but it works, right? And that's the kind of thing that like heavily edited matches like this can't possibly bring. They don't bring the spontaneity whenever if there's a fucking thought bubble above this guy's head. It doesn't seem like this is happening on the fly, because it's not. So they lost me very early on with this, but they just kept on going.
Yeah.
And then they fought. What the fuck else happened? They fought some more. And then they were outside for some reason.
They smashed through a window.
Oh yeah, they did. Oh god, that was so fucking stupid. Oh, and then they were outside and they jumped off a thing, I think, or was that later?
That was later, yeah.
And then they fucking met the ninjas.
Ugh.
There were ninjas there for some reason, and then they fought. Then they were on the same team, and then they fought the ninjas, and then one of the ninjas had a sword, so they ran away.
He was a giant ninja as
He
well.
was a big, giant ninja, which defeats the purpose of a ninja because you're not supposed to be seen. Right?
And there was Ivar who did like the Thor Mjolnir, with the turkey leg as well.
Yeah. Oh Christ.
Yeah.
They're just eating ham or whatever the fuck, and then like Joe was really annoying. You really bummed me out about that match. Apart from every second of it, was there were parts where like they would talk to each other as if they were making jokes, right? Like they would say stuff and it was as if they were making jokes, but none of it was a joke.
No.
You know what I mean? Like it was as if you said if you told a bunch of jokes to a robot and just said, right, make the sounds of what you think jokes sound like. right? It's just, they weren't. Why do they do this to me every fucking month?
Ugh.
Every month now, we've had this bullshit, this fucking ass. And we said this 2 months ago. We were like, if this happens every month, fuck everything. And
Mhm.
now it's starting to happen more than every month because we got fucking
Yeah.
Stadium Stampede and Money in the Bank. See,
And the parking lot brawl as well.
oh, I like that, but I agree that like it is still not cool and like too edited, you know.
Mhm.
Like I think that match could have worked without the editing. If it was just a fucking brawl like that in there
Yeah, yeah.
in the parking lot, that would have, and they did the same shit, it would have worked the same way for the most part, you know.
Mhm.
So yeah, exactly. We're getting too much of this fucking bullshit, and I think this is clearly the worst of the WWE stuff.
It's up there, definitely.
I think by a long way, this was just hot garbage from like start to finish. Just not good. Not good. You know, similar like self-indulgent like bullshit. Like, look what we can do. But I'm like, well, none of it makes any sense, and also none of it. Well, very little of it was fun to watch.
Mm.
Like, it was just, I was no, I didn't like it, and I was kind of annoyed because I had heard, well, not that I had heard, we had seen that recently the WWE had been putting on shorter pay-per-views. And so we get this fucking bullshit match. So when I look at the clock, I'm like, there's only one match left, and I have a sneaky suspicion it'll go on for a long time. So like, couldn't they have like number one cut some of that previous fucking whatever out, or number
Yeah.
two, cut all of it out, and then the pay per view would have flowed a lot. Dude, if you cut all of that shit out, nobody would have minded.
Well, I guess the thought process was give like something to break up, put a gap between the McIntyre Lashley match and the greatest match of all time. So this was more like a piss break, really. This is a chance for people to go out and kind of
I can't piss for that
switch off.
long. It's too much piss, just like Sheamus. It's too much piss. Do you know what I really liked? Sorry to go back, I forgot about this. But do you know what I really liked about that fucking Sheamus Jeff Hardy thing?
Mm.
When Jeff Hardy throws the piss in Sheamus's face, Sheamus like a trooper, right? He has his mouth wide open,
Yeah.
and they do this like slow motion shot of like the piss like going all over his face. Like, oh, Sheamus, you fucking trooper. You know what I mean? Like that's how you sell it. Oh my goodness, that was good. We had some good stuff on this show, and then they give us this fucking bullshit. Like, I don't I understand the need for like a little palate cleanser. That makes sense. But like, imagine you were about to watch two of the greatest ballet like presentations you've ever seen
Mm-hmm.
in a row. You're gonna marathon them because you're a champion and you love ballet, right? But in the middle of it, there was like a giant like monster truck drove into an orphanage and it blew up, right? And everything's on fire, and all the orphans are running around with like burned faces, and you're like, oh, what the fuck? And then back to the ballet, right? You'd be like, I'll be honest with you, I could have just watched the two ballets.
Yeah.
Didn't need the burning orphans. Didn't need that, man. That was a step too far. Like I understand that for the most part, but again, like part of the benefit for that is the live audience.
Mm-hmm.
People are going to need a piss break at some point. That's understandable. But if there's no live audience, fuck them, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Don't need to fucking do that. And you know, it certainly doesn't make your tag championships look good.
And here's the thing as well. These are two really good tag teams who can have a really good match. So why not just let them wrestle?
Right? Like what the fuck? Any of that? I don't. I don't know. I just like what they keep doing stuff that has me like speechless. That has me lost for words, but never, well, very rarely in the good way. And it's annoying, and it's especially annoying when the preceding match was like what I thought was a really really good match. Drew McIntyre, Bobby Lashley, really good match. And what preceded it happens to be the greatest wrestling match of all time.
Yeah.
that garbage shouldn't have been on that show. That's what I'm gonna say. But anyway, let's actually talk about the greatest wrestling match of all time.
Okay.
All right, so in the greatest wrestling match of all time, you've got Mankind, and he's on top of the cell. The Undertaker's up there too. What are they gonna do?
Hang on, I thought the greatest wrestling match of all time was Shawn Michaels and Undertaker, not Mankind and Undertaker.
So, you know what I'm thinking of? The greatest wrestling match of all time. My mistake. I meant to say, Hogan was going in there. He was wearing the black and white, but you could tell by the crowd, like they wanted him to be in the red and yellow. You know what I mean? And The Rock was in there, and it was like like it was you. I don't know how to explain it other than you knew you were watching something pretty special.
No, hang on a sec. Is Randy Savage was putting up the Intercontinental title, wasn't he, against Ricky the Dragon Steamboat?
Yeah.
And then they went out there in front of a huge crowd and just absolutely tore it down.
You think? No. No, you've got it all wrong here, buddy. See, the angle was Punk's contract was about to run out like that night, right? So he was like, I'm gonna fight John Cena, and if I win the belt, my contract runs out, and I'm out of here. And you know what happened? He fucking won the belt. He ran away, and he put that belt in his fridge.
Well, no, I thought it was when Mankind decided Mankind wasn't good enough anymore, so he ripped off his mask and took off his shirt and became Cactus Jack, and then he brought the fight to Triple H in a hell of a street fight, which went all over Madison Square Garden, and it was lots of bloodshed and thumbtacks and barbed wire, and yeah, it was about as perfect a brawl as you can get.
I know what you're thinking of. No, hang on. I think we got some crossed wires here. Here's what really went down. All right. All the way through the match, right? It was a really, really straight match for the most part. But then, like, near the end, Eddie Guerrero, he, like, unties his boot, right? And nobody really knows why he's doing that. But then later on, Kurt Angle, like, right after that, Kurt Angle gets him in the ankle lock. Eddie, because he's untied his boot, he slips out of it. Kurt Angle's just holding his fucking boot like an idiot. I really like that match.
I think the match we're looking for is from an episode of SmackDown back in the day where it was Melina against Alicia Fox.
Oh, yeah.
Should we get to the real greatest match of all time?
You were just talking about it. I want to hear more about Melina versus Alicia Fox.
No one wants to hear about that.
Oh, but we have so many other good matches we could talk about. All right, well, I guess we'll talk about the greatest, if you say so, we'll talk about the greatest wrestling match of all time then. Edge versus Randy Orton, Backlash 2020. Edge had been retired for a long-ass time. Mm-hmm. Then he came back after, his neck had healed up significantly. Had a overly long, but, like, otherwise, like, decent enough, like, kind of street fight with Orton at WrestleMania.
Yeah, I didn't really like that, but yeah.
I didn't mind it. It was way too long. If they trimmed it a little bit, it would have been better. But, like, for the most part, it was what it was, and it was pretty okay. So I'm like, all right, Edge has still got the chops, and he's taking some rough-looking bumps, which he shouldn't be doing. But I'm digging it. And I assumed it was just a one-off thing for Edge, but no, he came out and was like, fuck you, Randy Orton. Well, really, Randy Orton came out and said, fuck you, Edge.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole thing escalated. And Edge decided to, finish business with Randy Orton once and for all. So somehow, some way, they finagled themselves into the greatest wrestling match of all time. Now, I'm not quite sure how exactly they came about deciding it was going to be the greatest wrestling match of all time. Given that these guys have wrestled before, why wasn't any of those times the greatest wrestling match of all time? But also, given the numerous great wrestling matches you mentioned, and plus the other ones we didn't even get to mention, we could have been here for a while just fucking doing that bit. So, yes, that was very interesting to label it like that. I mean, honestly, like we both know that it's just classic wrestling, like, promotion.
Yeah.
That's not at all like how many times have you watched a fucking this top? Well, you didn't watch a whole lot of WCW pay-per-views, but I can tell you for a fact that an awful lot of the time, Tony Schiavone would start off a WCW pay-per-view by saying, folks, this is going to be the greatest wrestling event of all time.
Yeah.
Right? And I, with 100% certainty, can tell you that after Tony Schiavone had said those lines, from all the pay-per-views I've seen, he was absolutely incorrect. Some of the worst shit I'd ever, and like that's what I never liked about that, because poor Tony Schiavone had to open the show by saying this is gonna be great, and then he just got fed like 3.5 hours of shit. But he himself has acknowledged that like that's just part of the gig. It's just a terminology. Like,
Yeah.
it's just a way to get people interested. So I know a lot of people were like upset, which is funny that people would get upset about such a ridiculous thing. Like, how could they possibly say it's the greatest match of all time? I'm like, it doesn't matter. Like, that's not the point. The reason they said that is because now you're going to watch it, even if it's just to say, well, that wasn't the greatest wrestling match of all time, then they fucking got you. The only reason it's called that is so that you'll fucking watch it, right? Mm-hmm. So if you watch it and you didn't like it, doesn't matter because they still fucking need you watch it. It's just, it's just marketing. But then it turns out, fair play to them, they put on a really fucking good match.
Absolutely, yeah.
This is a really good match. Again, way too long.
Yeah, but I think they kept the interest throughout the match, though. So it was, I mean, I could take or leave the sort of last 10, 15 minutes or so where it was pretty much just hit
rock
big
bottom.
Move. Yeah, and then they just like stay down for ages.
And the
Olympic Slam and stuff.
Olympic Slam is the one I was thinking of, yeah. And I'm like, I understand the idea of calling it the greatest wrestling match of all time. And up until that point, I thought they had been delivering. But I did not like it's a little highlight package of all the great wrestlers. I'm like, we don't need those wrestlers that you have just mentioned. We have also mentioned in actual greatest matches of all time. Right? Kurt Angle, Triple H, The Rock, they're incredible. We don't need to be reminded about them like this. Edge and Orton have enough of their own fucking moves. It was a nice touch, but I think they went a little bit too heavy-handed with it.
Yeah.
So,
which I think was part of the problem with the match in general, like not in terms of so much as what they were doing in the ring, like aside from that sort of finisher fest using other people's moves and stuff, like they were doing a good job, but it was more the like enhanced viewing or whatever they were calling it, with like the piped in crowd noise and then the fucking weird camera getting in the ring and stuff, like when they hit the superplex out the corner and the camera's like in the ring waiting for them to hit and stuff. It's like that just doesn't look right at all.
Right. Like that's another unfortunate part of this editing business, is that when you start like editing the wrestling matches, then we're in bad territory. Like, I don't like that. I don't like, it's not a film that you can just take parts of and cut it together. Like, that's not the way it's supposed to be. And the problem with them taping things like this and having this freedom and clearly having the balls to go and put on whatever the fuck they had put on before this match, just the brazen balls of them to go, look how great we are at editing. For them to this is what I was afraid of when they started these like theatrical edits, is that if they start doing it on actual matches, then all of it's just gonna be nonsense and a waste of time. Because then you it takes all the fun out of it. What if they figure out this is just a cheaper way to do it, and fuck the fans, and we'll just tape all of it and cut it together and make it nonsense?
Yeah, but you say that, but like as well, it has its bad points, because obviously it was part of the reshoots where Edge apparently tore his tricep. So if they had just done this match, one and done, like wrestled it as they would have any other point in history, then Edge would still be healthy right now, and they could build to a rematch at whatever the next show is or whatever. But because they decided to do reshoots and have all these fancy camera angles and try and enhance the viewing or whatever bullshit they want to call it, it ended up biting them in the ass because now Edge is injured and they've lost a big name when they desperately need big names on the roster.
Well, to be fair to Edge, like I never thought that he was coming back full time.
No, but I mean,
I assumed that after this thing with Orton, he was going to take a break anyway.
the fact that Orton wins here and Edge won the first match at WrestleMania suggests that there was going to be a third match in the making, but when they would have got to that, who knows? Like, I would have thought, because they need as much kind of eyes on the product as possible, that it would probably be sooner rather than later. But now it's not going to be for at least like 8 months or whatever, however long it takes to, return from a triceps injury.
Well, they can't do a second one anyway because this was the greatest wrestling match of all time. So you can't have a second. I mean, this was a once in a lifetime moment, John, and once in a lifetime matches don't come along twice in a lifetime. Don't be silly. That has never in the history of the WWE ever happened.
If they did a third match, it'd just be downhill from here because you can't beat the greatest match.
It would be ridiculous unless. How could they? I was gonna say if they put it in the Hell in a Cell, because that used to be the best way to make a match even better. Back in the day, stick it in the Hell in a Cell. Triple H versus Mick Foley, stick it in the Hell in a Cell. Shit, that's great. Shawn Michaels versus Undertaker, Mick Foley versus Undertaker, stick him in a Hell in a Cell, see what happens. Oh my God, they just made some of the greatest matches ever. But you can't say that anymore because. When was the last time you saw a fucking amazing Hell in a Cell match?
Exactly. It's another thing they kind of, did to death, just like they're doing these cinematic matches to death as well. So
what if they do like a cinematic Hell in a Cell match where they're actually in hell and the cell is all like CG? So like while they're filming the wrestling match, they have to wear like green suits, and they CGI it all in later. And you watch and go, wow, that's the best animated film I've ever seen. And then somebody's like, no, that's a wrestling match. And you're like, oh.
Dude, you're saying this, but I can totally see them doing this.
2 years. That's how long I give them. 2 years before that cell is actually in hell. If it happens before that, I, expect a royalty check in the post. No need to thank me, boys. Just send me a little bit of that sweet revenue money. Because God knows we need it.
Yep.
Despite being the greatest podcast of all time, we still do this for free. We give you guys the good stuff for free. All the time.
The kindness of our hearts.
Right. And we really should be rewarded with something. But anyway, so this match, right? The greatest match of all time. Really good match. Not the greatest match of all time, because that is subjective.
Yes.
But still, like, given the amount of ridiculous hype they had for it, it did a pretty good job.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it for what it was. Like, if you ignore the hype, which I think most people probably ended up doing, like even Edge and Randy Orton themselves, like, were just taking the piss out of the billing of the match all last week on Twitter. But yeah, like if you ignore that and put it to one side and just look at it as like a solid wrestling match, it was really good. Like, almost unfortunate that it was like the same week as Daniel Bryan and AJ Styles went out and had a really good match on SmackDown, which is you could make an argument that was even better than this match. If it hadn't have had the commercial breaks, like cutting into it, I would have probably put it above this one, but that made it enough of a difference to me that I probably enjoyed Edge Randy Orton more.
I haven't seen that Daniel Bryan AJ Styles match yet. I don't think it's up on the network yet, is it?
No, not on the network yet.
Not for a couple of weeks, probably.
Probably about 6 weeks or something. I think that's
6
how far they're behind.
Weeks?
Yeah.
I'm gonna forget about it in 6 weeks. No way I'll remember this because in 6 weeks time, can you imagine the amount of fucking bullshit ass edited fucking cinematic pieces of shit we're gonna have to sit through? 6 weeks time? How many have we sat through in the last 6 weeks? I feel like way too fucking many.
Yeah.
So God knows what's gonna happen in another 6 weeks. You know. Hang on, let me do the math real quick. Another 6 months, 6 weeks would be like end of August, right?
Yeah, that sounds about
Ish.
right. Yeah.
End of August, beginning of September, after SummerSlam. All right, fun little personal challenge. Let's see what the fuck else happens in the by the end of the summer. You know, let's see if it could be better than the greatest match of all time, or worse than just one of the shittiest fucking segments that I've ever seen. Isn't that weird? Isn't that weird that for we've been asking for the good stuff for so long, and they give us Lashley versus McIntyre and Edge versus Orton in two really fucking good matches, plus some other solid stuff on that card too. Sheamus Jeff Hardy was good, you know,
Yeah.
like decent to really good show overall, and then they give us that fucking atrocity that I don't. It's one of those things that's like burning your, like you'll just be going about your daily business, right? And then just one part of that fucking segment will just pop in the back of your head, and you'll be like, oh no, you know what I mean? You'll just like, oh, good. Oh. You'll be in church and you'll be like, oh, you know, Lord's Prayer, blah, blah, blah. You know, because he just, and then they're like, what's wrong with him? He's possessed by a demon. And I'm like, yes, I am possessed by the demon of the most horrific television I've ever seen. You know, like what the fuck with it? Was it a chicken leg or was it a ham?
Turkey leg, I think.
Turkey leg? Why was it in a bush?
Ugh.
Don't eat it! Oh. So I'm like livid that they would give us some like not only like decent wrestling, but some really fucking like some of the best main roster wrestling we've seen in a long ass time. Coupled with just some of the shittiest fucking stuff in that Street Profits Viking Raiders thing. If I implore anybody to do, here's the thing. My brother said to me, with these like no audience shows, it feels a lot like the atmosphere is kind of weird, and you wouldn't really want to go back and watch any of those matches, right?
Yeah.
And pretty much up until this point, I was kind of with him. I'm like WrestleMania was fun, but it wasn't like holy shit fun, you know? But I gotta say, I would watch Drew McIntyre and Bobby Lashley again, and I probably would, if I had enough time free to watch it, the whole thing, probably would watch Edge Orton again.
Yeah.
That's how good they were. I'm not saying that they were the greatest matches of all time, but they were fucking good.
Absolutely.
And so you can see why we're so, or at least I'm so disappointed in them. Like they were so close to like a great show. Like a wall-to-wall great show. You know, a couple of dud matches doesn't make up. You know, that doesn't matter because the bulk of it was great. But you can't excuse that tag title thing. You can't. I'm livid.
One thing I was going to mention about this match as well, I don't know if you noticed it as well, but like there's one point where they sort of fought out into ringside and Randy Orton gave his like back suplex onto the announce table, and then he sort of leans in whilst Edge is like laying on the announce table and he whispers to him, and like when I was watching this, I had my washing going like washing machine going full blast, so like, you know, there's a bit of noise in my flat, but like even with that noise going on, I could definitely hear him when he leaned in and whispered. He was like going, I'm going to fucking kill you, motherfucker. And it's like, what the hell? How is this still in the show when, you know, this was taped in advance and obviously edited heavily and stuff? It's like, why did they leave that in?
Right, like they probably could have, you know, easily covered that with something. You're right. Like it took them fucking 4 days to edit that thing or whatever. Like they missed that. Come on, man. But that's at least that's, you know, good stuff for us.
Oh yeah, I found it hilarious.
That's gonna be the kind of thing that'll be edited off the show by now.
Yeah, I would have thought so.
Oh shit, he said, fuck, we gotta cut that out. Yeah, I'd imagine that's gone. Yeah, is there anything else you wanted to say about the whole business?
Yeah, just the other thing I was going to mention was the piped in crowd noise, which I thought was, I think
Shit.
it was something that I've kind of been interested in seeing if they do, because like they've done it in some football games since that started coming back without crowds, and it makes a difference for sure with the football games. It gives it the atmosphere that you're used to seeing, but I don't know. Here it's sounded a bit forced, and
Mm-hmm.
like at points in this one where they started chants as well. Like I think they were piping in the chants to kind of encourage the crowd of NXT rookies to kind of sing along with it, like "Fight Forever" and "Holy shit" and stuff like that. It's like, it just, yeah, it didn't feel like, Randy Orton and Edge had properly earned those chants, because it was, being forced upon them rather than,
Mm-hmm.
a natural reaction.
I get that. I do. Yeah, like the chants were a little, like the piped in audio was a little jarring. Like nobody likes it when they do that anyway. So
Hmm.
I don't see why that was a good. They had Hard Finkel at the beginning though, right?
Yeah, that was a nice touch.
That was a very sweet thing they did. That they didn't have to do that, but that was a really nice thing. Uh, you know. So yeah, there you go. Is that
Hmm.
everything? Shall we
Yeah.
wrap this one up? So there we go, people. That was the greatest wrestling match of all time, plus a few others, and another thing that we won't talk about ever again. A pretty like decent show, I thought for the most part. I was very happy with it.
Yeah, I think it did the job really.
Yeah, I liked it. Some really good wrestling in it. If you guys are interested in wrestling, especially like proper wrestling, especially now in this like kind of time where you're not really sure what to watch or whatever, definitely watch Drew McIntyre versus Bobby Lashley and Edge versus Randy Orton.
Hmm.
I don't think you'd be disappointed with that at all. So there you go, guys. Yeah. So we're gonna call that a show. Thank you very much for listening. That's what we thought about Backlash and the greatest match of all time. And we will be back in a new episode pretty soon, talking more fun wrestling business as we often do. So thanks for listening, guys, and we'll see you in the next one.